All right, let's get started. So we have a Trump-sized crowd here, so bigger than Obama's inauguration. so that's good. Let's just get started. My name is Jitesh Doshi, and this is Christian Crawford on the screen. We both work for Spinspire, and the topic of this conversation is about, the presentation is about, how we have been using Drupal to help our client, which should be pretty obvious. I'm just not going to put it in, you won't find the name in the presentation slides, but it will be pretty obvious. The largest insurer in Florida. So how we help them sell health insurance and life and dental and vision and all the other kinds of insurance through the web using Drupal. They made a strategic decision in 2010, I think, to use a CMS, because the website is all content. But the key thing is, if all you have is content, then what you have is a website. But if you need any interactive features, and if you are actually selling something, then it's not just a website, it's a web application as well, right? And so they needed a CMS that is it doesn't just manage content, but actually should be very, very extensible and should be flexible and performant, and quite importantly, secure. So that's how they ended up on Drupal as opposed to any other CMS, because Drupal is relatively secure. I mean, we have been with this for almost a decade. I've been, and I hear all kinds of, stories of Joomla and WordPress and so many others. Not that Drupal doesn't have its own security issues sometimes, but still, relatively speaking, it's much more secure. This being a healthcare company selling, there is a big problem. There's a big concern about PI and PHI, personally identifiable information, and personal health information. So there are a lot of regulatory concerns. Security is a big deal, like I said. Plus, extensibility is a big important consideration for them. So, and Drupal checks those boxes and a lot more. So they started with Drupal 6 in 2010, and immediately, as soon as 2011 January, Drupal 7 came out. Midway, we switched the platform from 6 to 7. That was before we went production, so it's the right time to do it, right? And so right now they are still in 7, and some of the new sites they are all Drupal 8. And we, as Spinspire, we support many of those sites, including this particular one, which is where the insurance plans are being sold. Okay, so very quickly, once again, Christian and myself are visages. And on Twitter, if you are going to tweet or anything, we are at Spinspire_com. Because I don't know, you are not allowed to use dot in Twitter handles, it seems. So Spinspire_com. And so about Spinspire, we are a Jacksonville-based Drupal shop. We do Drupal development, application development, and other types of development, including React, AngularJS, Java type other backend development. We are gold sponsor this year, so I'm sorry, not gold, silver. I forgot about that. And like I said, from Jacksonville, pretty good size clients. Like I said, the largest insurer in Florida, plus the world's largest #1 sports apparel company. You guys probably know it. Again, I'm not naming the names because I don't have specific permission from them. So and several other medium-sized clients. Lot of migrations that we have done, and upgrades and new implementations, etc. Okay, so several long-term projects. All right, so the agenda today is going to be that we will talk about what site features we needed, and how we implemented them. That comes under the technologies used, and what challenges we faced, what we learned, and where we might be going from here. Okay, obviously Drupal 8, AngularJS, and ReactJS, and we'll talk about those things. What is this? Oh, let's
a transition.
A transition, yes. So let's get started. Okay, so like I said, this is the largest insurer in Florida. So they need to, when you go to their website, I will show you the website actually. Oh, sorry. No, not that one. Again, I have no way of showing the website without actually typing their name, right? So, and if you are looking for insurance, you'll go to find a plan. By the way, this site itself is Drupal. This company uses most of their public-facing website. Almost all of them are Drupal, actually, and there are many of them. If you go, so Medicare is also being implemented right now in Drupal 8, or is it already implemented?
Yeah, right now they're doing that.
Okay, yeah. So, and then this one is not Medicare. This is the individual plans. So obviously there is in 2012 or so, I think we implemented the Affordable Care Act compliant exchanges and everything. So there is a lot going on behind the scenes. It's not just a pretty site. There is a significant amount of functionality behind the scenes. So if you go to the consumer web sales site, then you can. There is a lot of content. As you can see, this is like any other website. But so there is a lot of content, a lot of images and theming, etc. going on. So this is like any other Drupal site. You would need these things. But then, as you get into get a code, that's where you transition from just a website to a web application. This is one big message about open enrollment being over, etc., etc. So, I mean, this is where you need some flexibility so that you can put these alerts, etc. Whenever they want, right? Time, obviously, open enrollment is now closed, so. And you basically go through a quote. This is the place where they need to collect demographic information. So you give some zip code, let's say 32259. This is my home zip code. So if you do that, it gives you two choices. St. John's or dual county. On the other hand, if you say 32256, there is only one county, so it's already pre-selected. So those kinds of, may I say, details that make the UI usable and user experience better. So you can put whatever. Yeah. Let's imagine that I was born in 1980, right? And I am a smoker, and let's say spouse is also from 1978. 2 years old. That's fine. The thing is, this is what we call the demographic. Oh, look at that, the chat window. So yes, obviously this integrates Salesforce chat, and so this is the Salesforce chat. What do we call it? There is a specific name for it.
Live chat.
Live chat from Salesforce. Yeah. So I'm not going to chat, but it's been integrated. So now this is a result of the Affordable Care Act, that now you have to integrate with the exchanges. You have to calculate subsidy, and this is obviously going to the government exchange integration site, and there is a lot going on there too, because they don't have an open RESTful API that you just call. They want you to authenticate yourself, so we have to send a SAML request, and we get a SAML authentication back, and so there is a lot going on behind that. So if you say estimate my subsidy amount, I'm not going to do that. I just say just show me the plans, because that's simpler workflow wise. So there you see it's making you choose between two large categories of plans, either blue select, which is a PPO, or blue care, which is HMO. And network size is larger on the blue one, so let's go there. And as you go and view these plans, so this is all application functionality, and as you can see on the left, there is a very extensive filtering criterion. You can say, hey, I want my monthly premium to be under a certain amount, and it's filtering them in real time. You want certain subcategories of plans. You want your deductible to be low. You want premium to be low and deductible to be low. So I guess you'll have fewer choices now. And then there are, as you know, Affordable Care Act, it divides plans into various categories: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So it's narrowing them down, telling you how many you have choices for. So all this is done in Drupal. So let me take a pause at this point, because until now, this is like any other website. There are a lot of smiling faces and photographs, and you have to understand that this is healthcare insurance that we are selling. So huge number of regulations and rules. So there is a terms of use and disclaimers, etc., all over the place. So those are obviously very important. But that's just standard Drupal content. But beyond the content, there is, of course, a lot of application functionality going on, and that's what you are looking at right now. And all of this is implemented with custom modules, and not just custom modules, but a whole lot of JavaScript as well. So that's where most of the work went in. So this is the good thing. I mean, as a client, the insurance company is thinking, okay, I need a CMS. And we have a lot of content editors who will write the content, so I get 80% of my website right off the bat through contrib modules and the CMS functionality. The remaining 20% is, of course, what is taking the 80% of the time, and that's what we have to implement. We have implemented using custom modules and JavaScript and a whole bunch of integrations behind the scenes. So. Like, for example, there are other things. So here's, before I did this, I didn't even realize that you could use views in a way. If you now say, so I'm going to compare these plans. So if I say, I check a few plans, and I click compare selected. So, and these are the plans being shown side by side with each plan attribute on the left-hand side. Now, I don't know if it is obvious to you. It wasn't until I implemented it, is that this is a views implementation. All we are doing is taking 3 different plans, putting their node IDs right there in the URL, and displaying them as a view. So the main difference being, typically in a view, your views rows are horizontally displayed one after the other, right? But in this situation, we just turn them over by 90 degrees, and now the rows are being shown columnar, vertically, side by side. So, question?
So, are you using the node IDs as contextual filters?
Say that again?
I said, are you using the node IDs as contextual filters?
That's absolutely correct. But yeah, that is correct. And not only that, the key thing that you also see is that when we are selecting these node IDs, when I check this back on the previous screen, when I'm selecting them, I check them, and when we click on compare, through JavaScript, we collect those node IDs from this screen, and then build a hyperlink, which is where we take you when you click compare selected, and immediately those node IDs get into your URL right there, and now they are being shown side by side. So this is the power of Drupal, right? In any other system, people would think that, oh, how would you implement something like this? But I mean, once you know how to do it, it is such a simple concept, right? So all that change is, instead of showing them vertically laid out, just turn them around by 90 degrees. So these are the kinds of things that if we were not using views or one of these contrib modules in Drupal, we would have to write a whole lot of code for. And in this situation, All we did was wrote the code for the JavaScript that constructs the contextual filter URL. So, right. So there's a lot more. You can add once you have selected them. You obviously go through all these the description of the plan. And let's say you add to cart. This again is Java. A whole lot of JavaScript. What happened? I think it went down. Okay, yeah. So enrollment period is not okay. So I have to go to other products because enrollment is off. So I just want to try something. Let's see, dental plans. Why not? I'm not able to show you the card functionality. We'll come back to this. Let's not spend too much time on the demo side. You guys can do it yourself. It's a public site. But let's talk about what features we have implemented. So the demographic information, your age, smoking status, gender, etc. is there. That's what we call demographic information. Determining eligibility. There was a button there. Am I eligible for subsidy? And that is something that is done on the government exchange, and we have API integrations with those. The live chat, as you saw, suddenly showed up on the page. Plan listing also you saw, and then comparison. And shopping cart I was not able to show you because it's not open enrollment right now. But anyway, and plan selection wizard is something that we had implemented, and it's now turned off. It seems, right?
Yeah.
Because what the situation was, this is pre-Obamacare, pre-ACA. There were so many choices that it would make your head spin if you were presented with all those choices. And after all, you're buying insurance plans, which even when you have a few choices, it's kind of complicated to choose, right? So plan selection wizard was a very rich JavaScript application, which allowed you to go through, like, instead of being presented with 200 choices, made you go through a decision tree, about 6 or 7 decision points in there, and said, do you want this, don't want that, do you want maternity care or you don't, and so on and so forth. And then finally it showed you many fewer plans rather than a couple of hundred, right? So that's what the wizard was for. But then with the advent of ACA, that is built into the class where you have HMO or PPO versus subsidy eligible versus not, and so on and so forth. So it automatically gets narrowed down now. Okay. And so a lot of enterprise service integrations. This is obviously a large company with a group that is in charge of calculating prices and the rating, what we call a rating engine. So rating the demographic information of the buyer, and based on that, calculating risk, and of course calculating premiums based on all that. So that is called the pricing engine. Then there is physician directory, which is yet another integration to third parties, because you have to plug into all your networks, which provides what physicians are available. And again, you can see that on the website. And finally, that healthcare exchange, subsidy calculation, etc. Actually, there's a lot more integration than this, but I'm just showing what they are. And then few other. These are all technical. Now I'm switching to technical side of the features. Not so much user facing. So dual DB schema is something interesting because. Has anybody ever used more than one database with Drupal? Yeah, right. So you have, right? The thing is, Drupal is, and this is something we should be proud of as Drupal community, because we seem to have thought of everything, and there are so many other places where they don't. This would be a big deal, but using more than one database in Drupal is pretty standard and commonplace almost. Or at least pretty easy. And that is, of course, you have the dollar databases array. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's the dollar databases array, in which your primary Drupal database is spelled out, what credentials and the URL, etc. But then you can have other non-default databases. and that's what we have to use for this client because they have a lot of information coming from a different databases, including plan information. Okay, so what we do is we integrate the Drupal content data with this, third-party table, non-Drupal table information, and we integrate that into the view.
So it's a separate live database that might change, and Drupal will still keep using it.
Exactly. Yes, it is live database, and it changes at any point.
Do you only read from that external one, or you also write to it?
Very good question. No, we don't write to it. We only read. For writing parts, we usually post through RESTful services, and that comes when you check out you check your card out. You have added a health plan and a dental plan and vision, let's say whatever, and then you finally check out. That is a RESTful service integration to a fulfillment, or known as the enrollment application. So, this is slightly different from e-commerce sites in this sense because e-commerce sites, you check out, you actually swipe your card and you pay by card. Here you don't do that. Your checkout basically says, okay, enroll me, and then enrollment process. It takes you to the enrollment site, which is not in Drupal, and where you provide more detail. I mean, now your social security number and all those kinds of things, and that's a different thing altogether. Okay. So, and then site packaging and deployment, as you might guess, we use features, but of course, there's more to that story than just saying we use features, because it gets complicated. Also, there are a lot of content updates and plan updates that we import periodically with feeds. So remember, all these things. This has been around for 6-7 years. So it's been, and then single sign-on is implemented with SiteMinder authentication, because what happens is when they are editing the content, so you need to log in on the admin side. That is implemented with SiteMinder, and not your standard Drupal login process, but it gets intercepted. Any admin URL is intercepted by SiteMinder, and now it makes you log in. So technology, of course, LAMP and Drupal 7, upgrading to 8 soon. Some of the sites are already in 8, like I said. Installation profiles. So that's something different that we used, installation profiles. On the whole, it's a good thing, because our client not only uses this distribution themselves, the profile, but they also are actually helping other healthcare insurance companies in other states do the same exact thing, use their software and sell their plan using the same stack, and that is very useful because of the installation profiles. That's quite doable. So this is a further twist on Drupal multi-site, so that's kind of useful. Contrib modules, all the standard ones. I mean, this is a very small subset of everything that's been used. And then DB2 PHP driver, like I said, for dual. The second database is a DB2 database. And a lot of replication between different systems, because they have dark and light, right? So live and dark pipelines, 2 pipelines. One that is active in production, the second one which is getting ready, and it carries the upcoming iteration, and you want to synchronize them, and so we do rsync, etc., periodic rsync. A lot of drush automation to automate the build and deploy process, deployment process, synchronization process, and custom modules for all of these. I've already spoken about most of them: shopping cart, physician directory, healthcare. Let me see. Just want to make sure that I don't go. Oh wow, it's been. What time did we say? Oh yeah, 15, right? Okay. All right. So one thing that I haven't spoken about is so I talked about shopping cart, physician directory, healthcare marketplace interface. What I didn't talk about is Views plugins to merge rates into views. So this is very interesting because remember you are displaying the plans, which is straight views output, right? But then right next to the plans you are displaying the premium, which is calculated. It's not stored in any database. It's always live calculated based on your demographic information. The rating engine is returning that information. So how do you display dynamically calculated information into a view? Something that is not sitting in a database somewhere. That's not in a node or in content, but it's being dynamically calculated. So the answer is you write a custom module, and in that you write a views plugin, and that plugin basically gets called as every row is being rendered, and as part of that you return a calculated field. And calculated field in the view is basically that rate that you received by making an XML request to the rating engine. And then you merge them and integrate that into each row of that view. So all that is happening behind the scenes. Campaign tracking and custom landing pages. So this is for when you were saying healthcare marketing, right? So I was just joking when I said healthcare doesn't need marketing, but of course they do. So when they are sending these mailers, they have campaign IDs. You know that very well, better than I do probably. And when somebody clicks on that campaign mailer, they are sent to this landing page. So we have to create customized landing pages for each of the campaigns, which is trivial when it comes to Drupal. Of course, it's a CMS. It's designed for creating landing pages for anything, right? But that part is easy. But of course, the incoming campaign ID needs to be tracked not only when they land on the page, but also as they are navigating through the site after that, right? And then whatever their activities are, and if there is a conversion eventually, and that needs to be tracked. So, of course, Google Analytics and some of these things can do some of those that tracking, but tracking it all the way to conversion, they had very specific needs, so we had to write custom code for that. Then finally, this last one is the touch point. They call it touch point, which basically means when you check out your cart, you want to make a RESTful post service call so that the demographic information and the selected plans, the plans that the user selected, all of that information is passed on, is handed off as a touch point to the enrollment application. At which point they actually start giving their personal information, actual date of birth and social security number, whatever else. I mean, at that point, it's not a public site anymore. So I think I'll skip over this. We have already looked at it. So plan listing pages. This is an example. This is pseudocode. You want to explain the pseudocode?
Yeah, so basically, if you're familiar with the Drupal views hooks, so basically this fires after it's gotten the results, and then it gets the demographic information, and then makes a rate request out to make HTTP call out to the rate server, and given the plans that you chose, the demographics that you sent in, and then it iterates over the results that it gets back from the HTTP request, and then displays those values in the view.
So basically, this is making the XML HTTP request to the rating engine. Is retrieving the rates for a bulk, all the rates for all the plans, and then this is where depending on what plans we are showing, we just inject those rates into their plan row based on the response.
So
yeah.
Put that in a session.
Yeah.
I said you put it in a session, right?
Session? No, this came from the demographic information. Yes, it did come from the session, because when we are collecting their age and date of birth and the smoking status, that is the demographic information, and we are retrieving it from the session. But then when the actual rates that we have calculated, it goes back into the views row. This is the views row object. All right, so I think we have already talked about this, all three of them. Anyway, we are not going to show any real code for this. So But this physician directory lookup is kind of interesting because it is not it's a binary service. It's not even XML and HTTP. It is HTTPS, but not XML. So there is it uses a binary protocol, a Java Web Service protocol that is binary, and we were like scratching our heads. How are we going to call this Java Web Service from PHP? Fortunately, we found Hessian PHP, the library that allows us to. It basically serializes and deserializes to and from Java into PHP. So, I mean, the PHP ecosystem is very helpful in that sense. I'm sure in Drupal 8 you would have put that in the vendor directory nowadays, but in 7 we just had to include that in the module. So, okay, and then of course there is Google geolocation API to determine lat long, so that we can pre-populate some of their, based on their location, we can send them to, we can pre-populate some of the information. All right, so security, I already talked about the single sign-on through SiteMinder. I think we can skip this. Pricing engine, we already talked about it. It's basically making an HTTP request and getting an XML response, parsing it. Yeah, this code, I'm going to skip because you can read. It's pretty straightforward. You have an empty array of plans, and then make an HTTP request with where's the request XML? What is this? Custom user info. Okay. So this is where we are sending some demographic information like date of birth and smoking status, etc., along with the array of clans, and the request, and then the HTTP request will be sent, and the other end calculates, the rating engine calculates the price, the premiums on each of them, and it returns that price as XML. And of course, this is what we integrate back into the views in views rows later. I think I'm going to skip this. It doesn't work very well in a slide. Code doesn't work very well in a slide. And then when it comes to healthcare.gov, they like I was saying, they don't just, it's not an open interface. Anybody can make a request. You have to authenticate yourself as one of the participating companies in the healthcare exchange. So there is a lot of authentication that goes on, and we hide that behind a data power. If anybody has used data power, it's an ETL tool, and it's also used for service integrations. And we basically we were told that's what we have to use, so we used it. But we could have made the call directly as well. I suppose it's meant for to control access. Rather than having a free access. I'll skip this data power stuff. Okay, physician directory. This is the Hessian service lookup. I think So in Drupal DB schema, this is something useful for us. Basically if you have done any Drupal custom module development, you would start running database queries, right? And by default, all of your queries are running against the Drupal's default database, which is probably MySQL or something like that. But if you wanted to use the same Drupal API, same database access layer API, abstraction layer API, against a different database, all you have to do is call this DB set active and give it the key of the second or third, whichever database, and now all your database access API calls are hitting the other database, and you just have to remember to set it back to the other one, to the primary one. And if you don't, it's not such a big deal. That particular request is going to get hosed, but the subsequent request will reset. Is that, you're not sure of that?
I think it crashes because it tries to look up. generally when that happens, like it'll say like I can't find the semaphore table.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Does that set it for the running thread or that specific function? What's the scope of that call? What is it?
Very good question, actually.
All of Drupal.
My guess is that it would be, if you're running, for example, Apache, then it would be Apache is multi-process, and that particular instance, every request that goes to that instance of Apache will get hosted. If you're running Nginx and PHP, now Nginx and PHP runs in Stone, again, the PHP process that was affected by that erroneous DB set active will get hosted. So that's my guess. I mean, we generally, when we are during development, we keep one process, right? Everything is single, so it's, I mean, that's where we see. So it's very easy to reproduce the problem, right? Because there is only one process going on. If you have multiple processes and your request happens to be routed to the one that is not affected, then the problem goes undetected for a while. That would be a problem. That would be bad. So you basically, like I'm showing, $databases array, you have a second database. The default is called default. This is the second one, and you can have, you're using a DB2 driver and whatever the name of your database, some URL, host name, password, etc. You're basically, the key thing in your code, you will be using this key, second DB. Of course, you call it something that makes sense in your case. And then you just call DB set active, and then you get the second database. And then you have to remember to set it back to the original default database. That's basically it. You could actually get a specific database connection, say $database get connection, and then you can also specify what database you want a connection to, and then start running select statements from that. Okay, shopping cart. I think I've talked about it, but this is where I think we had a lot of fun with the shopping cart part, because it's all JavaScript. There is very little server-side trips at all, because you're storing the state in the cookie, and sometimes we also experimented with client-side data stores, but mainly it's all in the cookie and the session, right? So, but most of the functionality is implemented with JavaScript. We started with jQuery, we did prototyping in Angular, and now we are considering React. So there is a lot of activity in this area, and this is the most active development side of things. This plus the plan listing, which of course needs a lot of work. But checking out, it's a lot of fun. I mean, when we were starting the project, we were told, oh, you guys have to look at Uber Cart. At that time, it was Uber Cart was the big thing, and then Drupal Commerce also. But I mean, right from the get-go, it was pretty clear to me that Uber Cart and Drupal Commerce have no role to play here, because this is not a typical e-commerce site where you have a catalog of widgets that you sell, and then you add to cart, and then you ship them, and you charge the credit card first, then you ship, etc. All that this is not a typical e-commerce flow. This is a very different situation where you don't even take a credit card number. Your products are not widgets; they are health insurance plans. They have very different criterion for selection and choosing. And then finally, in your shopping cart, you have only one slot for healthcare plan. You cannot put more than one healthcare plan in the slot in that shopping cart. So, and then there are very complicated business rules, like you cannot add a dental plan until you have already added a health plan. Also, if your health plan includes dental coverage, then you cannot add a dental plan, and so on and so forth. So there are so many business rules that a standard e-commerce platform like Magento or UberCart or Drupal Commerce wouldn't make any sense. So you had to build this from scratch, and you have to build it in a way that it produces. It's simple to understand and maintain, but more importantly, it is simple for the user to use, which the other systems, pre-built system, would not have worked. So that's why we had a lot of fun with shopping cart. Site packaging deployment, I was saying standard feature stuff, and these two production pipelines, light and dark. I'm going to skip that. The one thing that we have to understand is yes, I'm going to just say one thing about features in a second. But the main challenges were all the service integrations, the PI/PHI regulations, and the UX prototypes. They have a very creative design group there, and they come up with very beautiful looking prototypes. But implementing those in actual Drupal is not always straightforward. And because you can do, when you're just doing a mock-up JavaScript with JavaScript also, right? Markup, you can do anything. Even CSS sites, you can write any kind of HTML you want, but for Drupal to actually produce that HTML with those classes and with that CSS attached is not straightforward. So we had a lot of fun there. The development environment lockdown is where you don't have access to even the dev server, let alone stage of production. You develop on your own local workstation, and then you just commit and you go through their deployment tools. I cannot go into the details of what those deployment tools are, but you have to. It requires a lot of patience. It's sort of like those days of punch cards where, or even before that, where you write your program first and then you submit it as a job, and then next morning you come and check that it worked or not. So that's how it feels. That's how it feels when we are deploying. Right? And then finally, you can't have cloud. Well, obviously, if you have cloud, then you can access it from anywhere, and you do the whole deployment process, etc., will become simpler. But you cannot have that because of HIPAA. At least that's what I'm told.
That's changing. A lot of the clouds are certified now for HIPAA, FedRAMP, all kinds of stuff.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that is true. I mean, that is absolutely true.
Yes.
So, well, what did we learn? Well, enterprise client means limited options. They have their rules. On top of that, highly regulated enterprise client, even more limited. Use Drupal as intended. This is kind of obvious, but trust me, you get caught up in the specific problem, the parameters of your problem, and then you start you have one tool, which is Drupal, and you try to retrofit it to every situation, every problem, and which is what we were being told to do with UberCart and everything, right? So we resisted that temptation, and we said, no, this solution doesn't fit the problem. So use Drupal as well as any other tool the way it was intended, with a little bit of flexibility. Use Drupal's API function instead of PHP. One of the examples that you saw earlier was a Drupal HTTP request. You could have done simple curl requests, which is what comes out of the box with PHP, but we learned that it's better to use Drupal's own requests. They do add value. Drush automation saves time and effort, and most importantly, it is repeatable. So if you have a problem in your deployment script, you will have that problem will be there every time you run it, and that's a good thing, which means you fix that problem once it's fixed forever. Consider containerization. So we are discussing Docker and OpenShift and those things because they make not just your development simpler, but more importantly, your deployment becomes more predictable, lightweight. Right now, they have to have an oversized VM, several of them, for everything that they need to do. But with containerization, I think that situation will be improved, much better efficient use. Configuration management with features requires discipline. Yes, this is what I was talking about. Deployment, features is great, except that it takes a lot of discipline to take full advantage of features. Because if you are not going to featureize some of your configuration changes, and you get sloppy and you get lazy and you say, okay, I'll just do this manually myself and not featureize it. You go and deploy that to production, and you overwrote something that was not featureized. So that happens. So it's a constant challenge. And Drupal 8 is exciting, but vastly different from Drupal 7. That I think is an understatement. It feels like a completely new product. Yeah.
So did you try to build it in Drupal 8 first, and then found out that you need to do it in 7?
No. This was built in this whole the site originally was built in 7. So and in 2000 we started in 6, by the way, in 2010. And 2000 while we were still under development, Drupal 7 came out, so we switched to 7, and it's been in 7 from the beginning. Now we are considering. We have already implemented new sites, new implementations in Drupal 8. But this one, of course, needs to be upgraded. So, of course, Drupal 8 upgrade is on the cards. And right now, the card functionality, etc., is all still implemented in jQuery. And then the plan listing, we did prototypes for Angular, but now it seems React is winning the day. So we will be looking at React. So this one is islands of application in the ocean of content. It's our way of saying that you have Drupal as the CMS. 98% of the HTML on your page came out of Drupal as the CMS, out of the node and all the theming system, etc. But then there is a very small amount of HTML that is manipulated by your jQuery or Angular or React application. So that's what we call it, islands of application in ocean of content. So if you take that approach, then you don't have to, it goes back to using the right tool for the right job. And you're able to use jQuery or Angular or whatever JavaScript framework you're using to bring UX richness to the customer. So it's kind of good. Without having to make Drupal do things that it's not designed to do. Finally, RESTful Drupal backend. Maybe we give up, move away from Drupal on the front end completely and keep the content in the CMS. But that's remains to be seen. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I think we're done.
Yeah, let's just